What the? Hi, welcome back to Horse and Hammer. My name is Todd, and today we're going to be making a cross-stitch scroll frame for my mother for Mother's Day out of an old broom handle and a lump of wood that was conveniently in my shed. Let's get to it. Everybody, here you can see the magnificent finish of my workbench that's filthy. For materials, find yourself an old broom handle. Any old broom handle will do. A lump of wood to make the rails up the side. I'm using some really cheap pine doorknobs that I found in a big box store. Some M8 washers, or nylon washers, and some M8 nuts and bolts to make the sides up. After squaring off the ends of our broom handle, we need to measure up 40 centimeters from each end. So here you can basically see what the approximate basic layout of this is what we're gonna look like. So these are our sides of the frame, and what we need to do is make sure that the holes line up directly at each end, so everything is nice and square. So what we're going to do is very quickly going to measure across the side of the frame. So this is the side of the frame here, and we're looking at about 43 millimeters. 43 millimeters. So we're looking at 21.5 mil into the center. So these were the offcuts from the side frame rails. As you can see, I've got them taped together just to keep them in alignment. So when we drill these holes, they'll line up on both sides. So after sanding the dowels, we now need to drill a hole in the end of them so that the M8 bolt can be epoxied into the end of it, can poke through the side of the frame rails, and then we'll have the doorknobs that we had on the end, and you'll be able to screw them down tight onto it. If you have a drill press, I recommend using it. I'm gonna just clamp mine in my vise, put a level on it, and then try and get the hole square inside of it. Wish me luck. So we have the dowel in the vise and we've got it at level. So we're just gonna crank down on the vise a little bit and make sure it's locked in tight. and then we're going to drill our pilot hole. Bloody drill ran out of power. I think that actually looks pretty good. Let's raise the camera up to the right level. Yeah, I think we got it pretty straight. Woohoo! So now we've got both of our dowels drilled at both ends. So that's finished for the moment. The next part that I want to do is I'd like to put a nice rounded end onto these, just so that they're a bit more comfortable in the hand. I don't think the sharp edges will look that great either, so I've left them taped together, and what I'm going to do is use this can of butane spray to help me find a stencil to put over the end of the corners. Don't forget your pencil. Okay, so after sanding that, make sure you're wearing a mask. Dust in your nose makes for really weird boogers that are really incendiary if you're not careful. So after all that, we've got the nice rounded over edges that I was going for on the top. This looks a lot better, I think, than having the harsh square edges at the end. So what we're going to do is just cut the tape off on both of these, and then we're going to sand down the flats a little bit more, just to sort of get all the burrs of wood off and make it look all pretty. Then it's time to do the glue up. Tape! We now have to get the insert out of the doorknob. Way I'm going to try to do this is by clamping the screw into the vise and then just pulling on the knob to see if it will release. So, not mucking around anymore. I'm just going to put a crowbar under there and see if I can lever it off. Hopefully this will work. Might put it a little bit lower down into the vise. Let's see what we can see. Alright, so that's pretty much wedged in there, and now got him. That actually worked quite well. All right, 3 more to go. Now that we've got the inserts out of these doorknobs, we need to drill them out a little wider so we can fit these M8 nuts into the end of the doorknob, so that we can use that as the torque down on the M8 bolts that are in the corners of the frame. I've got a nylon washer at each corner on the inside, and I'm going to put a nylon washer on the corner on the outside as well. This will just stop the exterior surface of this wood being scuffed up too much if you tighten down too hard on the scrollers. Welcome back to the vise. Now we're going to try and widen this hole out, as I said, so that we can make sure we can fit in our M8 nut. The widest drill bit I have is this monster right here. It is a bee's dick shy of being the same width as this. It is virtually spot on, but it's just a couple of mil too short. It's also round. I'm yet to find a hexagonal drill bit. If any of you in the audience know where I can get some, can you let me know? Now that we have drilled out our dowels, and we've cut off the ends of our bolts, and we've removed the nutserts from our doorknobs and drilled out a hole to fit in the M8 nut. We're now going to epoxy resin in those two pieces into the wood. I'm going to make a simple jig just to make sure that the bolts fall in straight. After doing a quick test fit to see if everything went together okay, I noticed that the holes that I drilled were just a touch too tight around the M8 bolts, so I'm going to use a bigger drill bit just to drill them out a little bit more, make a bit more room so they work a little bit more easily. I've mixed together the marine grade exterior wood varnish with about 10% mineral turpentines. This will just help it spread nice and easily over the pieces and give them a great finish. We'll probably end up doing 2 coats depending on how they go, and yeah, let's get into it. I ended up putting 3 coats of varnish on all of the wooden parts with a light sand in between. Brought the finish up quite nicely. I like how the pieces of wood have turned out. The only pieces I didn't varnish were the doorknobs. They already came with a coating that seems pretty good. Now it's just time to assemble everything. With the scroll frame fully assembled now, all we need to do is attach these 2 pieces of fabric that I've got right here to either side of the rollers. This is what you stitch your cross stitch onto so that you can roll it on the rollers, of course. We're going to use a staple gun to attach it. I'm going to put one of these bits of wood in the middle of the frame while I'm doing it, just to rest the back end of the staple gun on so we get more control as we do it. You might want to give that a try. Because it's a rounded surface, it could be a little tougher to get those staples into. This worked out better than expected. The only issue that I have with it, as you can see here, the staples are still a little bit proud of the surface sticking up. This for me is a bit of a safety hazard. So what I'm going to do is grab a hammer very quickly and just smack them in. When I was hammering, I did notice that one of the staples, this one here on the end, if it will focus on that, you can just see that the tooth of the nail, or tooth of the staple, just sort of stuck out of the wood a little bit. That's okay. I'm just going to remove it off camera and replace it with a new one, and then put it together for final assembly. And of course, now what we need is a fast forward montage of me putting it back together. I think that this project turned out great. I'm really happy with how everything came together. I'm really happy with the finish. I'm really happy with how the fabric looks on it. It looks just like the ones I've seen on the internet of the project. There are a couple of things that I learned from this project. Learning how to drill square holes without a drill press was challenging. I didn't get 100% correct, as you can probably see by how square this thing sort of isn't, but it's near enough to be good enough. One of the things that I think is better about my scroll frame than the ones I've seen on the internet are these doorknobs on the end that I use. A lot of them come with wing nuts. And if you've been knitting or cross stitching all day long, your hands are going to be a bit tired and they can be a little hard on your hands. These are much simpler. Also, using the nylon washers really makes these a lot easier to get on and off, and also to actually twist the scrolls inside the frame when they're a little bit tight, so it saves you from having to do as much work. Some of the things that I think I'd like to do a little bit better next time would be the finish that I put on it. I put a little bit too much turpentine into the wood varnish, which is why I had to put on 3 coats. The first 2 coats more or less just soaked into the wood and brought the grain up. So that actually worked out all right in the end, because the finish on this, it's actually really smooth. It feels great. The rounded over corners on the end were a great idea as well. It's just going to make it a little bit nicer in the hand. But all in all, I hope that you found out something from this that you'll be able to try. I hope you try this project, and if you do, please leave a comment down below. If you've got anything that you'd like to ask me about this, again, leave a comment. If you enjoyed watching me make this project, please leave a like and consider subscribing. Until next time, thanks for watching.